Hello, I'm not 100%, but I thought I wanted to show you a little bit about my in-pot composting because I am about to set up this pot for my mulberry bush plant tree. It's supposed to be a tree, but it will live in here, which I'm actually going to set up in here. But before I did that, I actually set up something else. Let me show you and explain. If you've never heard of it, in-pot composting is all about setting up a pot within your other pot and putting your green material and brown material within it. And what happens is it gets broken down and turned into soil, and worms which live in the pot itself will go in and out of the pot from the underside and take the goodness out. If this wasn't a self-watering pot, then what would happen is you would actually then put any watering that you apply to your pot would go through here in order that any goodness from the breakdown of the material in there is taken into the pot as a whole. This pot I've just refreshed with new material from our food bin, which I've just taken out because it was full. And then what I decided to do is, by the way, this is an Alicante tomato. I loved Alicante last year, and so I wanted to have some more. Let me just show you one I've just set up. In this pot, I have just set up this new in-pot composting. It was actually a small pot that's supposed to be for indoor plants, but I found that it's not as good because the reservoir results in fungus gnats. So I've taken it outside. I dug a hole. I was worried that I didn't have space with the nasturtium taking over. And I've got parsley in here. I've got coriander in here. I've got a mustard, which is self-sown and germinating well. And then I've got another Alicante tomato there. And I thought, you know what, I better put something in here as well. And if you see, you'd think, oh, she's just put soil in it, but that's not the truth of it. This soil is on top to mask what's underneath. So I've got cardboard, which I've shredded, and underneath it I've got exactly the same green material as you have in the other pot. So if you look at it there, see, there's the same green material on the underside. So what I've done is I've layered it all up. I put some of the shredded paper in the bottom to encourage the worms to come in there. This soil is already fantastic. However, it's not as fantastic as this one. And the proof is in the fact that if you see, this is garlic I planted at the same time as, let me see if I can even find it. See there? That little garlic in there, just there. And this garlic has thrived. This garlic, which you see, is extremely thick. And when you compare it to this garlic, went in at the same time as this garlic. So they've had the same amount of time to grow, but the garlic in the pot with the composting area has actually grown a lot bigger and a lot thicker. So that suggests to you that obviously there is a benefit to this. The other niceness of having an in-place composting space is the fact that, as you can see, I've got a nasturtium leaf which has been eaten. So I can just go like that, take it off, and just chuck it in there. So when I'm weeding, I don't necessarily need to carry anything with me if all my pots, which I hope to slowly replace with, upgrade by putting in the composting, have something like this. So you can just go around opening out the space and seeing what you can do. And any weeds or anything that you find, you just break up just like that and put in there. And this one works perfectly because this cover which came with it sits on top. On the underside, obviously, you've got the holes through which the worms and whatever other creatures can come through and live in there, breaking down whatever you've put into your pot for now. So it's worth considering when you're doing your own. Obviously you need to make sure that the pots you use are the right size for the pot in which you're placing it, because you want a pot that will fit whilst also giving you space to continue to grow food within it or to have your flowers within it. So in my blueberry plant, which is actually flowering very beautifully, we have one. I've just replaced this little pot which has been sitting in, and you can actually see the beautiful broken down compost. You know, it's beautiful, it's thick, it's sticky, and interestingly enough, when I pulled out this pot, there was a worm sitting right underneath it and it tried to run away. So that one I'm actually going to place in this one because it's a smaller pot. So when I plant it up, I'll be using this as my in-bed composting for there. This one, obviously I'll probably go to the garden center to get little saucers which would normally sit on the bottom, so that it can fit snug on the top of this, in order that I can actually keep it covered to keep the critters away. This pot is similar to the one I've placed in the other bed, in the other pot. However, this one is shallower because it has the same depth as the pot I just took up, which is obviously this one. But the difference is this one is wider, so it's going to take a lot more material. So as you can see, I've layered it up, and I'll give it about a month and it will all be broken down. So the secret is to make sure that you constantly updating and topping up what you've put into your compost bins in order to provide your plants with food. So in this one, probably what I might do is I might put a few more acid bits and pieces in there. As you can see, we have some blueberries already forming, and don't they look lovely? I've knocked them so many times, I don't know how big they will get. When I was planting this, I never put a self-watering system with it, but I've got mini saucer underneath which I actually use all the time. But maybe next year I'll think about setting it up so that it has its own self-watering system. When working with beds as big as this, once I've got a cat which keeps coming in here, but so far so good, fingers crossed. We seem to have managed to deter it, but it's required that I actually cover the top of the bed like this, which means that the bed is not as nice as it could have been had I not had, you know, cats coming in here trying to use my beds for toilets. So with a bed this deep, you probably could do with 2 pots, and you could put them in such a way that you can actually plant around them in order that they can provide for your plants. My new pot is big enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this pot here, and I'll buy it a cover, a saucer, which I can actually use. So I'm going to sit it on the edge, just about there, and then this will provide space for the plant to grow. You'll be thinking, oh, but that looks really, really full of rubbish already. Yes, this was one of my original composting pots. I don't even know which one it is. Let's have a look and see. It was just done anyhow, isn't it? It's just full of holes, no story. So this pot is going to house my mulberry tree, which can apparently grow to 4 meters. But obviously it won't because it's in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to top it up with soil, and I'm not going to put any manure in this because if I move this aside, this was an active growing bin, and as you can see, we got beautiful compost already being formed, and we have little wormies and a lot of different creatures that are living in here, and they've all dived right down deep because I opened it out to the sun. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top this up, and then we will plant up the bush. And I will, despite the fact that the mulberry bush is going to have a lot of food to provide for it, I'm still going to put this pot in, because obviously over time this will run out, but this will allow me to continue to provide it with nutrition. Now let me show you how I layer it up. Worms love to have paper, so what I've done is I shred cardboard all the time, to the point that my shredder is about to die. But what I'm going to do is I will put some of the shredded cardboard in the bottom like that, and I've actually wet it. And then what I do is, this is some of what's left in our food bin, so I've just crushed it a little bit. It's a mix of eggs, green material, and even more cardboard. And so what I'll do is I'll just put it in there like that, so that it will be ready for me to put it in its new home. And then what I do is I finish off this. I actually added some crushed eggs into here, eggshells. So what I do is I top it up with that, because obviously you want your compost making factory to be a little bit, moist. Otherwise nothing breaks down, as you saw in that pot, because I covered it without wetting it fully, so the top material has sat and has done nothing. So we do that. And then the last thing is I use my used compost such as the one in this pot, where the plants have either failed or I've ignored them because I don't want them anymore and they've died off. And what I do is I get it and I cover the top of the pot with soil. So when you cover the top of the pot with soil, it stops the smell, attracting vermin, and it also means that the worms will be happy to come up and eat in your new factory, because they're protected from little creatures which might decide that they're going to come up and eat them. So yeah, so this is going to go in with the new pot. But now let me get on and put together my pot. I'm not going to show you that because I haven't got the stand out. As I said, I'm not feeling well, but I was going to do this and I thought, you know what, let me show you guys, because sometimes we assume that everyone knows what we know, but sometimes there is always maybe one person who might not know about this. Okay, I'm going to set this up, and I was thinking, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put some wicking mats in there, wicking material in there, in order that this is where the plant is going to sit. This is where I removed my fig tree, which rotted off because of the very wet winter. So I'm going to put a hole in the bottom, big enough to pull a wicking mat up into the pot, in order that we can maintain moisture by filling this with water. So this is how this plant will be watered. So let me get on and drill and set it up. Okay, guys, I'm putting this in, but I thought I'd show you. If you've already got pot filled with soil and you don't want to take it out, all I did was turn this one to the side and I partially pushed this in. And then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to push it in with this. See? It takes it in nice and easy. See? So you get a stick and a stake or whatever, and that will work to push it in for you. And then I'm going to pull it through from the other side. I've got gloves, obviously, to make sure that I stay safe, at least for now. Okay, as you can see, it's come through beautifully, and this will help maintain moisture in the material that is still breaking down. And this moisture will also be transferred to the soil I'm going to put on top of here. So I'm just going to top this up with the compost, and then I'll put the mulberry bush in. I'm a little bit worried about it because I forgot it, and so it's a little bit run down. But I'll hope and pray that once it's in here, it will become very, very happy and give me a lot of fruit. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. Okay, I've put the mulberry in. The pot for composting is in as well. I'll have to find it a lid that fits it nicely, but that's a job for another day. We've also put some beans in here because this is going to take a long time to take over the whole space. So until that happens, we can use it to grow some other vegetables and give it a few companions to make it happy and feel that it's not alone in the world. Okay, so I'm just going to mulch it with some of my hedge trimmings and then I'll place it in its home. Coming. Okay, we're all done. It's in place. We just have to wait and see what happens. It likes its new home. Fingers crossed that it does. Have a good one.
Keep my hand in the fire. Won't learn my lesson till I let it burn, but never lose my desire. Had it from the moment that I felt my first love. I knew I'd never get enough of you. I'll take the risk like I'm bulletproof. Shots in my heart, but it bleeds the truth.